The judge in the It Ends With Us case is warning lawyers for Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni that they are jeopardizing the trial by making public comments about each other.
If the way that Baldoni's lawyers are portraying this whole issue is true, there are a number of issues here for Blake Lively. Let's get into it.
Back now with new and dramatic developments in the legal fight between co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni.
The last episode about this case that more lawsuits were coming. Well, one of them just dropped against Blake Lively, and it is also for defamation.
The legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively has escalated into one of the most chaotic lawsuits in Hollywood history. What started as a private dispute has now become a full-blown courtroom disaster, with new shocking developments surfacing daily. Now, Justin Baldoni's lawyer has been accused of directly disobeying the judge, adding fuel to an already intense situation. Meanwhile, Blake Lively, who was once seen as the victim in all of this, is allegedly dragging down everyone around her as her case falls apart.
You have Taylor Swift's name being mentioned throughout all of these lawsuits, or throughout all of this lawsuit, I'm sorry. And also the other thing too is, we already know that Ryan Reynolds is going to be brought in because he's one of the other people that's helping spearhead.
And if that wasn't enough, Taylor Swift's name has now been thrown into the mix, leading to even more speculation and controversy. With careers on the line, friendships destroyed, and Hollywood's elite scrambling to do damage control, this legal showdown is far from over. From the very start, the judge overseeing this case had to step in and issue a warning to both parties. Legal teams were making bold claims, media narratives were spinning out of control, and courtroom tensions were reaching a boiling point. The judge made it very clear that both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's lawyers needed to follow strict legal guidelines ahead of the trial.
The judge in the It Ends With Us case is warning lawyers for Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni that they are jeopardizing the trial by making public comments about each other. The actress is accusing her director and co-star of sexual harassment, inappropriate conduct, and improvising intimate scenes without consent. Allegations Baldoni vehemently denies. Now the trial is set to begin in March of 2026, but the judge is threatening to move it up if the public spectacle continues. Let's bring in ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more on this. Brian, what did you make of this warning from the judge yesterday, basically telling both sides to cut off these public attacks because he's saying you could influence the jury?
Yeah, so what the judge is doing there, Diane, is putting out the fact that he understands that what's going on right now could bump up against either rules of professionalism or just rules of how he wants to run his court. And so he's alerting the parties, both defendants and plaintiffs, to say, if you continue to do this, the other side and myself have strong arguments as to, one, but a gag order would set rules for both parties that the judge says must be abided by. But what the Blake Lively's team is instead saying is that everyone, myself, any attorney within the state of New York, has rules of professional conduct and professionalism. And they said that twice they sent Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's attorneys, cease and desist letters saying he's violating that. And so what Blake Lively's team is saying is, we just want everyone to follow the code of conduct, specifically that you can't put out statements that are not proven by fact or make frivolous arguments. That's what they're accusing Baldoni's attorney of. So the rules are already established. There are rules of ethics, and that's what Lively's team is asking everyone follows.
All right, ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer. Always great to have you, Brian. Thank you.
However, despite this warning, it now appears that Justin Baldoni's lawyer may have gone too far. Reports suggest that his legal team is actively disobeying the judge's orders, pushing boundaries that could have serious legal consequences. One of the biggest red flags in this case is Blake Lively's deposition, which has reportedly not gone well for her. Sources say that her responses were inconsistent and she struggled under pressure. Legal experts have pointed out that a weak deposition can destroy an entire case, and in Lively's situation, this could be the beginning of the end. If the inconsistencies in her statements prove to be damaging, she might not just lose this case, she could take down others with her.
Basically all of the communications about production, and not just between Lively and Baldoni and other people who were officially working on production. This means a lot of information, to include communications that Lively has had with basically anyone about the production of the movie, to include her BFF Taylor Swift, who Lively has referenced multiple times as someone that she talked to often about the production throughout the entire process. And this means Taylor Swift can also be deposed because she's potentially a witness to a lot of things. Now, there likely will be a fight over whether Baldoni's side is entitled to communications between Lively and Reynolds, however. That's because they are married and therefore they are entitled to assert the marital privilege. This means that any communications made between Lively and Reynolds while they're married, which they currently are and have been for a while, definitely throughout this entire production, the way that Baldoni's lawyers are portraying this whole issue is true, there are a number of issues here for Blake Lively. Let's get into it. Okay, so for those who don't know, Lively and Baldoni worked together on making the movie It Ends With Us, and while things may have started out well with production, things eventually went off the rails. She claims that he harassed her and then retaliated against her for complaining about the harassment. Meanwhile, he claims that she made up the harassment and retaliation claims after her efforts and those of her husband Ryan Reynolds to basically steal this movie right from under him eventually failed. If you want to see more background on this case, check out my first video on the subject, linked in the description below. Now, I didn't go over all of the details in this long and winding story because there is just so much to go over.
Just when we thought this lawsuit couldn't get more explosive, Taylor Swift's name has now been thrown into the mix. Legal experts are now saying that she may be deposed in this case, making things even more complicated. This has left fans completely shocked. Why is Taylor Swift involved in this mess? And what does she know that could be important to the case? If Swift is forced to testify, it could completely shift the balance of power in this lawsuit.
Taylor Swift might be deposed for the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively lawsuit? Oh, this is going to be interesting.
P-A-S-C-A-L, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal.
What's up? That's right, guys. Taylor Swift may be deposed or brought in as a witness to testify for this lawsuit. And you know what? I'm not surprised because I had a feeling that something like this would happen, especially when you got somebody whose name is all up in the text messages, all up in the conversation. Her name has been mentioned a bunch of times in his lawsuit alone. So of course, she is going to be brought in. Let's be real. Blake Lively has been saying all kinds of stuff.
As the trial date gets closer, tensions inside the courtroom have exploded. Arguments between lawyers, shocking accusations, and unexpected legal twists have made this case a media sensation. Observers say that this isn't just a lawsuit anymore, it's a full-blown war. Both sides are refusing to back down, and the judge is struggling to keep things under control.
Back now with new and dramatic developments in the legal fight between co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. A judge today warning their lawyers to try the case in that court and not the court of public opinion. Chloe Malas is joining us now. So, Chloe, how did this first hearing go?
Hallie, it was the first time that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's attorneys faced off in a courtroom since the former It Ends With Us co-stars filed explosive lawsuits against one another. Things got heated as both sides pointed fingers at how the public legal battle has unfolded. Now, remember, it all began in late December when Lively filed a civil rights complaint alleging Baldoni created a hostile work environment on the set and then waged a smear campaign to ruin her reputation. Baldoni, who has denied those claims, has filed a $400 million lawsuit against Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds for defamation. Since then, things have only escalated.
One of the most unexpected twists in this case is that Justin Baldoni reportedly had no plans to speak out until Blake Lively filed her complaint. If this is true, it raises a huge question. Did Blake Lively make a major mistake by pushing this lawsuit forward? If she had handled things privately, would Baldoni have stayed silent? And now that he's speaking out, could his revelations completely destroy her case?
I think he feels, really concerned about all of this and really sad about all of it for everybody that's involved. I think he goes through, emotions that everyone goes through in these types of situations. But, he's a really decent human being and a decent person, and has really been very fair and not wanting to attack anyone. But he is, he's devastated as anyone would be.
With this lawsuit dominating headlines, even Hollywood comedians are now weighing in. Chelsea Handler recently joked about the entire situation. Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and even Ryan Reynolds in the process. When late-night hosts start turning your lawsuit into a joke, you know things have spiraled out of control.
So it is important in times like these to have a distraction. And that's why I want to personally extend my gratitude to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Thank you for providing us with that distraction. I'm grateful. I think we're all grateful. And I think we're good. I think everybody in this room, no matter whose side you're on, we can all agree to accept that there's probably not going to be a sequel. It ends with us, guys.
Beyond the legal battle, this case has had serious real-world consequences. Reports suggest that Blake Lively and the New York Times didn't just go after Justin Baldoni, they took down businesses and ruined careers. Now, more people are questioning whether this entire case was about justice or something else entirely. If Lively's lawsuit caused more damage than she anticipated, could that backfire on her in court?
In the following weeks, Miss Nathan, whose clients have included Johnny Depp and the rappers Drake and Travis Scott, went hard at the press, pushing to prevent stories about Mr. Baldoni's behavior and reinforce negative ones about Miss Lively. The text messages show. Again, there they obfuscate their responsibility by saying, well, the text messages show this. The text messages show Jed Wallace, a self-described hired gun, led a digital strategy that included boosting social media posts that could help their cause. Boosting social media posts that could help their cause. Is this illegal to boost a post? I boost my posts sometimes. Like, how do we boost them? You boost them sometimes, your friends on the internet, they retweet you get boosted, maybe you got some press in the media. This is classic New York Times playbook. Guilt by association. They still haven't detailed what Baldoni actually did to make Lively uncomfortable. Because let's be real, if they had something genuinely damning, it would have been right up top. Right up front and center. Instead, they're deep into the article, already moving past proving guilt and straight into the juicy part, the smear campaign. And how do they make it sound extra nefarious? By throwing in some very scary names. Melissa Nathan, whose clients have included Johnny Depp, Drake, and Travis Scott. The goal here is obvious, you see. These are the kind of people Baldoni's team hires. That's what New York Times is saying. Like, see? These are the kind of people that Baldoni's team hires. Because if someone has worked with controversial figures before, obviously that makes them shady, right? Never mind the fact that crisis PR firms work with literally everyone in Hollywood. The goal here is obviously these are the kind of people Baldoni's team hires. Because if someone has worked with these controversial figures before, obviously that makes them shady. Then they drop Jed Wallace, a self-described hired gun, led a digital strategy that included boosting social media posts that could help their cause. First of all, self-described hired gun. What is this, a Tarantino movie? They're literally just branding him like some kind of rogue mercenary. In reality, digital strategy is what PR firms do, boosting positive press.
Rumors are flying that Taylor Swift is furious about being dragged into this lawsuit. Sources say she has distanced herself from Lively, and if she publicly speaks out, it could be catastrophic for Blake's case. Could this legal battle end one of Hollywood's most famous friendships? And if Swift truly does get involved, whose side will she take?
More lawsuits were coming. Well, one of them just dropped against Blake Lively, and it is also for defamation. We're going to talk about that, but Taylor Swift's team is now coming out swinging, and that is super interesting. An article just dropped about an hour ago in TMZ against Blake Lively in the press. Taylor Swift is alleging that Blake Lively is lying, but is Taylor telling the truth, or is this just a strategy to save her own skin? I don't know, guys. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. Check out this headline in Daily Mail. Blake Lively sources say Justin Baldoni lawsuit is causing her and Ryan Reynolds severe anguish. They are anguished by the things that they did being found out by the public. In that article, we're told that Blake Lively is, quote unquote, emotionally zapped by her spate of lawsuits with Justin Baldoni, but she remains confident nonetheless but she will ultimately prevail, okay? And the legal battles have apparently, quote, taken a deep emotional toll on the actress, as well as her husband, Ryan Reynolds, who has been named in one of the suits. So I wanted to tell you guys that. I wanted to tell you also that I feel nothing. I literally feel nothing. So much nothingness. I've never felt more nothingness.
While the lawsuit dominates the media, Justin Baldoni has tried to shift focus back to his work. With his upcoming adaptation of It Ends With Us, he has been publicly talking about his career, but the lawsuit continues to overshadow everything. At this point, the outcome of the case could define his legacy, whether he wins or loses.
Well, I first optioned this book in 2019. And at the time, it had sold just under 1 million copies. And I had never read
read it? Yeah.
Well, I just started Wayfair Studios, and at the time, my book agent, shout out to Johanna Castillo, sent it to me. And she said, just read it, because I was looking for movies that could be commercial and speak to the human experience. And
Were you reading romance novels?
And I had never read a romance novel.
Never?
And she said, just trust me, read it. So I read it, and by the end of the book, I couldn't even read the text on the page because I was crying so much. My wife was in bed next to me, and she's got that snot coming out of my nose. And then I read the reason why Colleen wrote the movie. It was for her mother, who had a real life experience like this. You know, she was Lily Bloom. And I just thought if this could affect me in this way, that I could only imagine what it could do for women and people who are in this situation all over the world.
Just when it seemed like things couldn't get more complicated, even more shocking revelations kept surfacing. Every new report, leaked document, and media spin seems to be making the situation worse for both parties. At this rate, the entire trial could collapse into chaos.
Ryan Reynolds' wife, Blake Lively, and her co-star, Justin Baldoni, and Ryan Reynolds. But we'll get more into Ryan later in the video. But the drama in general circles around a movie that was made that is called It Ends With Us, a film adaptation of a best-selling novel written by Colleen Hoover. And the book has very serious tones of domestic violence, generational trauma, and more. And Hoover herself includes a side-by-side story influenced by her own mother's abusive relationship, which connects heavily with audiences and readers.
My mother and father divorced when I was 2, and one of my earliest memories was him throwing a TV at her. She was able to get out of that relationship.
But another possible dig at Baldoni again. But once again, the last of them, from my knowledge, lies in the credits. According to Deadpool and Wolverine, Nicepool, who's obviously played by Ryan Reynolds, is listed as being by Gordon Reynolds, who Justin Baldoni also included in the movie It Ends With Us in the credits. And this section was a special shout out, meaning Justin Baldoni put them there himself to be credited. So the digs were at Justin Baldoni. And after all this, on January 16th, 2025, a lawsuit was filed. And this 179-page lawsuit goes for Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and more.
One of the biggest talking points in this case is how the media is shaping public perception. Some sources claim that both sides have used media tactics to control the public narrative. With so much misinformation circulating, it's hard to tell who's really telling the truth.
This case will never see a courtroom. This case was never filed to be tried. It was filed for PR on both sides.
How ironic is it? And I've been laughing to anybody, and in full disclosure, Brian Friedman, who is Baldoni's lawyer, is one of my closest friends in the world, and I work with him on many cases. And I have told him that right now he should get some kind of an award for raising the Titanic, because ultimately,
that's true.
It's true. Have you ever seen such a turnaround?
It's amazing. You're absolutely right. That Baldoni, at the beginning of this, when Blake filed her lawsuit, he was cooked. And I think Brian turned it around.
With so many twists and turns, legal experts have begun breaking down the evidence to determine which side has the upper hand. The case is too close to call at this point, but the final ruling could change Hollywood forever.
So my cousin has represented several high-profile defamation cases, and he was interviewed on the Dan Abrams show about the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case, and I think they were trying to get him to say something that would help out Blake. I'm going to insert the clip. It's about like 3 minutes long. But if you'll notice, the first question that he gets asked is, whose case will this interview help? And I think that if he had said, oh, this is going to really help Justin's case, I think they would have taken that into the court on Monday, because this interview took place a couple days ago, and said, see, this top expert says that all this discourse out there is hurting Blake's case and bias towards Justin.
The courtroom drama between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively has spiraled into a legal spectacle that no one saw coming. What started as a dispute between two high-profile figures has evolved into a battle of reputations, friendships, and legal strategies gone wrong.
He has the receipts. He then files against the New York Times, then flattens it out from there to sue her. And then Blake Lively's team runs into the Southern District here and says, hey, Judge, we want a gag order. You got to shut up Brian Friedman. I'm saying, really? You're the ones who took shots fired.
Yeah, we'll get into that because it wasn't really a gag order. And I think the whole thing that the judge did was just dumb. But let's get into it in a minute. I want to know if you agree with me. And I know he's a friend of yours, but when you look at what this is about, Justin Baldoni is suing Blake Lively for $400 million. The New York Times for $250 million. This is ridiculous.
With Baldoni's lawyer facing serious accusations of disobeying the judge and Lively struggling to defend herself after a disastrous deposition, the case has become more about who will take the biggest fall rather than who will come out on top. With more explosive revelations expected to come out, the question remains: who will manage to escape unscathed and who will be left to face the consequences?